It's a very difficult and even unique task to design and manufacture a fighter. Thousands of highly qualified specialists are involved in the process. Not every country can create a modern combat aircraft. Day by day, year after year, from one aircraft to the other, the Soviet aviation industry was gaining its experience. The Su-27 aircraft is a perfect example of what has been achieved during these decades. But the world is always changing. The country has also changed. Let's not assess the political events that were happening in Russia in the 90s. But it's worth mentioning that for the Russian aviation industry, those were hard times. But the Su-27 potential was so huge that it was helpful even in those conditions. The Su-27 aircraft family was preserved and further developed. In the 21st century, the new aircraft versions have been designed. By the early 90s, the Su-27 aircraft family has got ultimate recognition and high credibility. These aircraft were in operational service with tactical and naval aviation. As to the air defense units, they were the first to receive these new aircraft. The air defense pilots saw the true value of the Su-27. Compared to other fighters, this aircraft had a longer flight range. The Su-27 UB two-seat combat trainer had some advantages as well. Therefore, in the late 80s, the Air Defense Aviation Command was eager to have a special aircraft version. A new interceptor was developed on the basis of the two-seat version basis. This aircraft was called the Su-30. The aircraft was equipped with an air refueling system. Electronic equipment was also modified. Now the fighter could be used as an airborne command post. According to the aircraft layout, the air group commander was sitting in the rear cockpit. Having all the air environmental data, he was coordinating interceptors' group reactions. In the early 90s, the Su-30 was ready for mass production. But the economic situation in Russia was so tense that the Russian army couldn't afford purchasing these fighters. Only 5 aircraft went into service. If there is no financial support from the Ministry of Defense, where can we get the money from? So there was no financial support and no money at all. We didn't receive our salary for 5 months. When the Soviet Union collapsed, we were not thinking of aircraft designing, but how to survive in such conditions. The military people said the Su-27 could not be sold abroad. It was only for the Russian Air Force. We were arguing with them that our people needed work. Mikhail Semenov was insisting that the only way out of the situation was to break into the world market. Mr. Semenov was one of the initiators of this idea. When we started to work with the Chinese, they paid us with their down jackets made in China. But then those jackets were stolen from us. And we decided that next time, we would accept only dollars. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to survive. Those who were late to use the possibility and did not have sufficient experience simply became bankrupt. At present, only the plants that produce our aircraft for export are still in operation. These are Komsomolsk-on-Amur and Irkutsk plants. They have not only preserved their personnel and technology, but made a lot of progress. They have new up-to-date equipment and did not lose their personnel. This is very important. Today, the promotion of these products to India, Algeria, Malaysia, and the Su-30 versions export to China, Vietnam, Indonesia, Venezuela have provided the main export potential for our company. Over the last 15 years, more than 450 Sukhoi aircraft were exported. This gave us a possibility to discuss not the past achievements of the Sukhoi company, but its future. Speaking about its history, it's worth mentioning that Sukhoi is a company with a high level of technical, staffing, and production potential.
Технического, кадрового, производственного потенциала.
Depending on the customer's country, the specifics of the version, some letters were added to the fighter name. The Su-30, MKI, MKK, and MKM. At the customer's request, the Su-30 fighter interceptor has turned into a multifunctional fighter. In other words, this aircraft became a combat system that successfully attacks both air and ground targets. Traditional pointer instruments were replaced by multifunction color displays indicating all the required information to the pilot. This information includes route instructions, aircraft systems condition, or flight parameters. The data from the aircraft radar and weapon control system is also displayed. Such fighters belong to the 4+ generation, which is the 4th generation fighter with new avionics and armament.
Отлично!
Great! It's worth mentioning that apart from different flight instruments, the Su-30 export versions also have different structural features. Let's take a detailed look at the Su-30 MKI for the Indian Air Force and the Su-30 MKK for China's Air Force. The Indian version has canards, while the Chinese version doesn't. The main difference of the Su-30 MKI is perhaps its power plant. The fighter engine is equipped with pivoting nozzles that allow to change thrust vector direction. The Su-30 MKI aerobatic flight is always of special interest to spectators. Double twists, minimal turning radiation, station keeping in the air. In this particular case, it's a concept of a high-level maneuverability. Practical work on the thrust vector control was conducted since the late 80s. Apart from the version with round nozzle, the power plant with flat nozzle was worked through. The Su-27 UB aircraft was used for the system testing. A special flying test bed was created on the basis of this aircraft, and some flight tests were conducted. Mikhail Pogosyan was the executive manager of this project. It was a lot of work to do. We were laying scientific and technical groundwork for the 5th generation aircraft creation. Not all of the solutions were implemented. We flew the flying test bed with a narrow nozzle, checked the controllability. A flat nozzle gave a chance to considerably reduce infrared signature to a back semisphere, which is very critical for an aircraft protection from missiles with homing infrared head. We received very good results demonstrating much lower infrared radiation level. In the West, they conducted some tests as well. In 1990, the X-31 aircraft was designed. It was an American-German cooperative project. Special exhaust gates were turning the jet blast. In 1995, the X-31 was first demonstrated to the wide audience. Those days, only the X-31 aircraft could perform such maneuvers in the air. A year later, a worthy competitor of the X-31 was built. If the X-31 was only an experimental aircraft, the Russian one was much closer to the full-fledged combat aircraft. That was the Su-27M multi-purpose fighter with side number 711. This aircraft is more known as the Su-37. The Su-37 test began in the spring of '96. The project test pilot was Yevgeny Frolov. Shortly, he started to perform such maneuvers on this aircraft that totally changed the concept of an aircraft flight. The Su-27 had one more interesting feature. Instead of the traditional control stick, the aircraft was equipped with a special joystick installed on the right from the pilot. The Su-37 was followed by the Su-30 MKI. The maiden flight of the aircraft took place on July 1st, 1997. The test pilot was Vyacheslav Avedyanov. But the European debut of the aircraft wasn't very successful. June 12, 1999, the aircraft crew consisting of Vyacheslav Avedyanov and Vladimir Shendrik performs the check flight preceding the Le Bourget Air Show. By chance, the aircraft went lower than it was planned and hit the ground. It was a matter of only a few meters. The pilots had to eject. The things might have been worse if it was not the Su-30 MKI, but some other aircraft. The K-36 ejection seats were one of the key factors in saving the aircraft crew alive. These seats were designed in Zvezda Design Bureau by the general designer Guy Severin. Gone are the days of that flight accident in France. A huge success awaited the Su-30 MKI. For thousands of spectators at the International Air Show in Zhukovsky, the flight of test pilot Vyacheslav